For those of you who might not be familiar with the Coalition for College, I'm going to share a little bit about who we are. So we're over 170 colleges and universities with a proven commitment to access, affordability, and student success. So we work together to help students learn about, prepare for, and then apply to colleges. We believe that coalition schools are smart college choices because they provide responsible financial aid and graduate students in a timely manner, including those who have been historically underrepresented and excluded in higher education. And still, collectively, coalition schools outperform the national averages by about 27% when it comes to four-year graduation rates, which is a really important factor to consider when you're thinking about which college you want to attend, the amount of money that you want to invest in your college education, and the amount of time that you want to invest as well. So when you're thinking about applying to college, this is a really great place to start with the 170 plus coalition college schools. So many of our member schools use our shared application platform, which is integrated within SCORE. So if you haven't heard of SCORE yet, it's a college planning platform that's free for all students to use. On SCORE, you can search and discover schools, collaborate with your supporters, apply, and also keep track of your application status there. We also still provide the easy-to-use application fee waiver, and there's a lot of different eligibility criteria that you can select there. And if you are eligible, then you'll be able to bypass the application fee at coalition member schools. And this application method is only available to coalition member schools, so you know that you're applying to schools that are dedicated to helping students graduate on time with low or no debt. And we're going to drop a link in the chat where you can learn more there. So before we move on to the Q&A portion, I introduce you to these amazing admissions folks who are on the call with us today. I want to share a little bit of information with you about the activities and experience section that you'll see in the application within SCORE. So many of the coalition schools use our application, ask students to share their activities and experiences as a part of that application. This really helps admissions officers like the ones on this call to see how you spend your time outside of the classroom. So you can share these by entering up to 10 activities in your profile on SCORE. So this event and many others like it are just one way that the Coalition for College brings advice and support to you. So you can give us a follow on Instagram, and for more information about and from our member schools, if you do that. And we'll also drop a link in the chat where you can learn more from articles about activities and experiences. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the reason that you're all here, and that's to hear from our admissions counselors directly, who are going to share some advice with you about putting in your activities and experiences in your application. So joining us today, like I said, we have this great group of admissions counselors who are going to share some of their advice and knowledge and expertise with you. So I'm going to go ahead and let our presenters introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Christina.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Lofaso, Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Stony Brook University. Stony Brook University is the State University of New York's flagship institution. We are located on Long Island in New York State as a public university. So we are a research institution, probably around mid-size, about 18,000 undergraduate students. And we have about 200 different academic majors. So if you are interested in Stony Brook, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. My name's Laura Chan. I take the She series. I'm coming in from Harvard College today and zooming in. It's a private institution. It's the college within Harvard University. It's about 6,600 students. I believe it is also an R1 institution. At the college, I am the director of the Harvard Financial Aid Initiative. I'm an assistant director of financial aid and senior admissions officers. It just means I wear a lot of hats, not that important. And I also serve as a first-year proctor with my wife. So my wife and I live with 29 first-year students in the dorms. So we're always excited to meet students and hear about all of your extracurricular activities and what you do in and outside of the classroom. So happy to be here today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wintress Ross, and I serve as Senior Assistant Director for National Recruitment for the University of South Carolina. The University of South Carolina is the flagship institution of the state of South Carolina. We're based in the state's capital of Columbia. We have about 27,000 undergraduate students, and I look forward to speaking with you all today.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And we're going to go ahead and get right into the questions. And as I mentioned, and as you see in the chat, the Q&A function is enabled. So if you do have any questions that come up, you want to ask them, feel free to throw those in the Q&A. But the first question that I have, I'm going to actually direct to Christina. So Christina, one question that a student asked when they submitted their registration was, how important are activities to my application and my chances of getting admitted?
It's a good question, and one that we kind of field all the time in the admissions world whenever we're speaking with students. And I kind of frame it around the reference of how we as admissions representatives shape our class. And as we do, we seek to enroll students who are going to thrive in our competitive environment. So yes, that academic piece is very important, especially in an R1 school or a more competitive institution. However, one that's going to flourish within the diverse and dynamic community that we have, and many of the institutions, especially those that are here with us today, is really important to us as it's at the heart of the campus. We want a student who's going to push forward and change the world, help others, innovate, experiment, and go out there and really, kind of be the leaders of our alumni, of the country, of the world. When it comes to reviewing students, the importance of your activities really goes to show us who you are as a person, as well as a student. And sometimes that can't come across in a transcript. Your transcript is very black and white. A lot of the times your essay and your resume or activity sheet or list of activities in your application is really the color of your application. And you want to make that as colorful as possible. So consideration for some more competitive, but really for Stony Brook, our STEM programs, all of our engineering, our computer science, there is some programs that go into having particularly more consideration given to students who are in either research competitions or STEM focused organizations or clubs. But outside of that, activities and experiences throughout the high school, outside of the classroom as well as inside, will definitely have a direct impact on your admissions decision.
Thank you, Christina. Next question is for you, Wintress. So are there any activities that are seen as more favorable to do, or should I as a student stick to what I really enjoy doing?
That's a great question, and one that I've already seen in the chat. I would say that you should stick to activities that you are interested in. Also being mindful that everyone's resources are going to be different. So there are going to be some activities that are going to be regional or specific to your state that you live in, and not everyone has access to that. But really focus on something that you're passionate about, but also realizing that even small things like taking care of siblings or other family members, that those are also considered activities. So there's more than just the traditional, oh, I'm doing activities at my school. So just think about things that you're doing in your community. Those are all things that we're looking for. We just want to see that you are passionate or working on something outside of the classroom.
Awesome. Thank you, Wintress. Flora, I think you know that you might be next. So the question that I have for you is, how do you evaluate students who haven't had the opportunity to do as many extracurriculars activities as some other students might have had?
Yeah, I don't think I would necessarily worry about it. We just really want to understand you as a person, what you're interested in, what you're passionate about, and what you're doing with your time outside of the classroom. So as Wintress mentioned, maybe caring for a sibling, just kind of think about how many hours a week might you do that or take on that family responsibility. Sometimes there's even travel to school because maybe you have to take 2 buses to get there and it takes an hour and a half each way. So maybe, that travel time is something that you want to let us know about in that grid or elsewhere in the application. Or maybe there's also some term time work. I worked at the mall food court when I was 16, and maybe that's something I would put into my application. So if you have a job outside of, your schoolwork and so forth, we want to hear about that as well. So just kind of what you're doing with your time, and that's going to really paint a picture for us as who you are as a person and what you'll bring to campus.
Thank you, Flora. I think that actually goes to a question that was also asked, and I'm going to ask this to Christina. So is it better to have a range of activities from different spheres, or to have ones that are more valuable, but from a few of the same areas? So I think the question is really quality versus quantity.
Yeah, definitely. Leadership is one of those things that I think we're all kind of looking for, as it's a pretty great indicator of success, both inside and outside of the classroom. But it's not something that we look to see in each and every club or activity you're a part of, right? You don't have to be a manager at your part-time job. You don't have to be the president of every single club. You don't have to be the leader of every group project or research competition that you are a part of. There's something to be said about joining a club that may just be for fun, one that puts you outside of your comfort zone, that you're not the best or the expert in. A student's ability to really know themselves so well, to know when they should be a leader and when they should kind of take the back seat or be a silent passenger, is something that's really valuable and something that's typically not learned until later in life. So if you're showing that now, it just goes to show who you are as a person and not just a student. So while we like to see leadership roles, and it definitely is important in those key clubs or organizations that are really a passion for you, it's not always important to be the best of the best or the top of the top all of the time. So especially when you have limited options on your application to select which activities you're telling us about, maybe select a nice mix. We like to see that leadership role, but it's not important to be a leader in every single club.
Thank you, Christina. I think that actually goes to another question that I will ask to Wintrust too. So given how little space there is to describe activities, what is the best way to describe non-traditional activities? And then how can we describe our activities in a format that catches the attention of the reader? Any advice on that?
Yes, and I've kind of put something in the Q&A because another student asked that. I think it depends. You want to try to put as much information on the physical application as possible, because every institution is going to be different. For some schools, they will allow you to submit an additional resume. And that is a part for schools that accept them, that you can put as many details as possible on there. A lot of schools are looking for growth and consistency. So being able to explain those different activities there. There's also, there's a additional information section on the application where you can go into more detail if it's a certain program that you're interested in explaining. But definitely you want to reach out to the individual schools that you're applying to see what is the best method of submitting that additional information. But the most popular way is definitely through that additional, some schools call it an expanded resume. But like I said in the chat, you want to always try to put as much information on the physical app as possible, so that for schools who are only looking at that, they can get as much information about you as possible.
Awesome, thank you. So I see this question has come in the Q&A a couple of times, and it's one that we saw during registration as well. So Flora, I'm going to ask if you can kind of answer two of these questions together. So should a student connect their activities that they do with any of their essays that they're writing? And then also, how important is it for their activities to be in line with the program or the major that they intend to study?
Well, for us, in terms of the liberal arts, we're not quite as concerned as, in terms of your essay or your activities being linked to your program of study. We're still thinking, you still might change your mind. You may say, STEM and CS, but you're really thinking, who knows, maybe you'll get here and you'll take a philosophy class and that will spark your interest. So we do know that shifts. In terms of connecting your activities with your essay, we really want to see what you're passionate about. So if really starting the badminton club at your school was, really a journey for you and really something that was formative in your time, we want to hear about that. And we want to hear about how that occurred and why it's important to you, because that just helps us understand who you are. But you also don't have to write about your extracurricular activities either.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So there is a question that I see in the Q&A. I'm actually going to just ask Wintress now. So if a student is participating in a pre-college program at, let's say, your institution, should they include that as a part of their activities in their application? And is that just for your institution, or should they include it in their application for all institutions?
I think if you have space, you should, especially about the program. I think about my time when I applied to college ages ago. In my alma mater, I did a summer program, so I did include that because there was a marketing competition included. But yeah, if you have space, definitely include items of, if it was a program that you had to apply to, maybe you were selected as out of however many applicants. But definitely, again, check with the different reps from each school. But we love to see, how you spent your summers. If it can add additional value or give another window about you, that's something that's great for some application reviewers.
Awesome. Thank you, Wintress. And then I'm going to ask this next question to Christina. So basically, the students want to know, do they have to fill up every activity? So I mentioned that you can put up to 10 activities. Does it matter if they fill all 10 activities, or is it okay if they fill out less?
I think on the application, that's an interesting question. I think on the application, it's really up to you. That's not an answer students are going to want. So to simplify, quality over quantity, for sure. If you feel like you can, and this goes the same to your college essay, a lot of the times to answers to questions in college as well. If you can truly answer whatever question you're being asked in a certain amount of words, in a certain number of bullet points, in a certain number of activities, and you feel like it's wholeheartedly answered, then you should not feel compelled to just fill up the space. We don't want to see you just fill up the space. We like to see consistency, especially when the activities that you are putting on your application connect with your major of interest. If it correlates to those clubs and activities that you pursue, for sure, put those on there, especially if they're important to you. But like my colleagues have been saying, it's really showing your passion. So if your passion has a couple of those clubs that have to do with your major, but like a question in the chat, it's a student that's interested in theater and has done a lot in theater, but let's say you don't go to school for theater, absolutely include that. That's your passion. But if there's a couple of clubs that also connect with your major, then put those on there as well. I don't think you have to necessarily fill up those 10. Especially if you're a student that had to get a part-time job, that didn't have the opportunity during COVID or throughout the past few years to join as many clubs or internships or competitions that you would have hoped. So don't feel the need that you have to. But if you do, and then you're seeing that you'd really like to include a few more, the ability to add an activity sheet or resume is also there for you. A lot of the times, either with the direct schools that you're applying to, or either as an attachment with your application. So it's really a personal decision. I know that's not what you always want to hear, but each student is different. I think the important key takeaway is to add those that you feel were fun and interesting, and maybe were a passion of yours, and others that you may think that we want to see that may help you in your studies as well.
Thank you, Christina. So I know that in the application, you have to put which years you've done the activity and how much time you've spent, particularly the hours. So Flora, do the amount of hours and years spent doing an activity matter? And is there a recommended amount of time that a student should be committing to their activities?
I wouldn't say there's a specific number, but we do want to see a thread. Like if you say that you love ballet and it's, your number one extracurricular, or you love dance, but we see it only first year, your ninth grade year and your 10th grade year. And then we're kind of like, well, what happened, in 11th and 12th grade? And maybe you got an injury and you had to pivot and, you were focusing more on managing the dance team. But we want to kind of understand that thread. So again, it's kind of quality over quantity. It's not the sheer number, but just kind of understanding your passion for that. Sometimes things can be consolidated, there's maybe some volunteer work that you do each year. Maybe instead of putting like 1 hour per year, maybe you can consolidate that with some other volunteer work. So we can understand, and you're kind of reserving that line for more substantial activities. So I wouldn't say there's a specific number of hours, but just so kind of we understand your interest and passion and consistency for those activities.
Thanks, Flora. So this question, I'll kind of just open up to everyone. But Flora, I know you sort of touched on this with the quality over quantity piece, but a student asked, so there were a student athlete who after 3 years of playing a sport decided to drop it right before senior year. They want to know, will this look bad on their application? But I guess I want to reword it to how can they communicate to you why they did this through their application? Or should they, and how?
Yeah, I think they could definitely, write in, in the additional supplement and let us know why they might have done that. Or they could even, if they don't feel like that's necessary, they could show and not tell. And maybe in their senior year, they're doing quite a lot of other things. They're the class president, or they're running the BSU. So we're seeing that time reallocated towards other activities. And if they feel like that's sufficient, they don't necessarily need to write in, because not everybody has to, play a sport for 4 years and so forth. So, and that's also, within college, we also don't require students, if they want to be, on a varsity team, they can try out for that. But if they don't want to, scholarship and so forth is not tied to that. So at Harvard College, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the key is that you participated in the activity for 3 years. So you'd had some consistency and you were committed to the sport for 3 years. And I think that speaks more than giving us an explanation as to why you dropped out. Well, not dropped out. Sometimes you have to vacate because you maybe have a job, similar to what Flora said. So I think that unless you just really want to explain it, it may not be necessary to do that, because again, it's the 3 years that we're looking at, like, oh, this student played this sport for 3 years. That shows a lot of commitment. That's typically what most of us are going to see as the positive versus you not doing it in your senior year.
Awesome. Thank you, Flora. Thank you, Wintress. It really sounds like you all are saying, I mean, you all as admissions officers, you really do just want to know how the students are spending their time. And if they switch things around, that's absolutely fine. Cool. The next question that I have, I was actually going to throw to you, Wintress. So I'll go ahead and do that still. So if you were talking to a student, because a couple of students are asking in the Q&A, should I list this? Should I list that? Should I not list this? Should I list that? What advice would you give to a student if they are trying to fill this out and they're thinking, is this activity important enough to list or not?
So I would preface this that my first job in admissions, it was very heavy on students need to submit an expanded resume. So that's where my mind comes from. But I think it's really going to depend on you. You need to pick what's most important to you, because for some of you, you're going to be participating in a lot of things and it's not going to fit on the application. So really just try to focus on the things that you think are going to best represent you. If someone is not going to have the opportunity to do, say, an in-person interview, or you're not able to chat with someone, which activities are you currently involved in, or what home responsibilities do you currently do that you would love to show off about yourself? I would always like to tell students it's the art of the humble brag. This is your opportunity to brag on yourself. So pick the things that you feel best highlight you, but also ask those individuals that are around you, family members, important adults, what do they think? And get their feedback about, the things that you're participating in and how to highlight those in your application.
Awesome. The next question I have, I'll direct to Christina. And I know this might be different at every school, but how important is community service, charity work, or volunteerism?
I think it adds to your overall being. I think those kinds of experiences that a student has, yes, for some things is very important to like explicitly point out, right? We have some scholarships that pertain just to community service hours or just to volunteer work. And that's important to really spell that out. But if those experiences really created an experience for you, made you overcome something, taught you something about life, really shared or had a direct impact as to the major that you're selecting sometimes, I think that those things are really important. I think this goes to show you that it's not always just a club or just an organization. I think a lot of the time students forget about, like what my colleagues have been saying, those part-time jobs or those kind of like outside of the school things that you might be doing. It's not a club right after school. It's a club that you join in your community center or through your church or religious organization. I think that if it's important to you, it's important to us.
Great. Thank you so much. So I think we're going to go with 2 more questions. And the next one I'm going to ask is to Flora. Some questions are about quantifying, so putting the hours to things and numbers to activities. So I'm just going to give an example off of the top of my head. As an admissions officer, would you rather see that in my volunteer work, I worked at a soup kitchen that fed 150 people, or would you want me to just say that I worked at a soup kitchen?
I think giving that level of detail, if you're comfortable, it is very impressive to me. I mean, I think that's a large volume of people to manage and to work with. I don't think you have to if you don't know the specific number, but if you do, that's fantastic. And that could be a great essay to write about, and you know, how you saw that experience as well. So it's kind of still up to you. I think the answer is still, you know, individually specific or specific to an individual. But it does help give a context. But, you know, we know that that's not available to students everywhere. If you're from a larger urban area, maybe there is a soup kitchen that feeds 300 people a day. But if you're from a more rural area, maybe the soup kitchen, you know, feeds 5 people, and that's an integral part of the community.
Awesome. Thank you, Flora. And then the last question I'm going to ask to Wintress, and it really is just a student wanting to know, do they put awards in their activities section, or do they do that separately? Whatever advice you have on that.
So I think it depends. For the section there, you know, there are things that you can put your awards. And back to that whole, because someone just asked about the resume. If it's a school that accepts an additional resume, you can also include that there. Again, you want to pick the things that you think highlight you best. So if you feel like it's an award that someone else may not have, or that it is something that's competitive, definitely go ahead and list it. But there's another section outside of activities for awards.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. And actually, thank you to all of our presenters, all of our admissions counselors on the call today for sharing your time and your expertise. Thank you to all the students and folks that are on the call as well for submitting really great questions.